What is up, A to Z Sports? We are live on a Thursday morning. Sam Phelan and Jack Gentry in the saddle today for A to Z Sports with Austin and Zach both out. So, Jack, typically you and I, we do this thing on Thursdays. We'll be back tomorrow as well. You and me, as the bye week is here, and the Titans have some a crossroads of sorts to sort of try and figure out which way they want to go. The trade deadline is looming, the rumor mill is busy, and the Titans might be active in shipping off some of their veteran players. So we have to talk about recent Derrick Henry trade rumors, whether the Titans are going to move their star running back, and basically whether we believe the Titans should be buyers or sellers at this deadline, or maybe neither one. We're going to get your opinions, go over all of it. A lot of trade deadline content coming for you guys today on a Thursday. So, Jack, before we jump into it, tell the fine folks what they got to do.
Yeah, glad to have you guys here on this Thursday. We're going to get into some awesome topics today. I'm sure y'all will have tons of opinions. They're very controversial, I can assure you that. But while y'all are trickling in here, I want to make sure we're growing the conversation, we're growing the audience, we're growing the show. So if you're watching on Facebook, share that show to your Titans groups. I know y'all are all a part of them. I see y'all posting in them regularly. Share it to those Titans groups. If you're watching on YouTube, tap the bell icon near the top of your screen to make sure you get an update every time A to Z Sports goes live. You don't want to miss any great content coming out from A to Z. And also, finally, if you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link to your Titans text groups. It's been a long week. We're talking trade rumors. I'm sure y'all have got takes on those. I'm sure y'all have been spouting them off in your group text. So why don't you go ahead and forward that link into your text groups? Get everybody in here. We want to hear all of y'all's takes, all of your opinions throughout the show today. We'll make sure to get to as many comments as we can. But with all that being said, Sam, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, let's do it. A to Z Sports. We are going live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time. We are powered here by our fine partners, and I want to give them some quick love before we jump into today because they're making it happen for us as we make it happen for all of you. That's the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care at boneandjointtn.org. Farm Bureau Health Plans, better coverage, better rates, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Aura app, anyone can find anything online, and the Aura app is the place to go with a 2-week free trial link with the link aura.com/ATOZ. Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer located in Columbia, Franklin, or Murfreesboro. Visit them online at krebskubota.com. So, Jack, the NFL trade deadline is next week at this point. It's October 31st. It's spooky season for Titans fans as Halloween looms, which is the trade deadline. And interesting as well because this deadline comes right in the middle of a short week for the Titans. They have this bye this weekend. They have all of next week to prepare for the Atlanta Falcons. They will host the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday, October 29th at Nissan Stadium. That Tuesday is the NFL trade deadline. That Thursday, the Titans are in Pittsburgh for a Thursday night football date with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that is certainly something to monitor as this begins to loom closer, because I get the sense that these deals are going to need to be made sooner rather than later if you're the Titans. And quite honestly, Jack, if the Titans are going to trade anybody, and we'll get into some of the possibilities or proposed rumors here in a little bit, it might need to happen before they even play the Falcons. Like, this could be within the next week here or so.
Yeah, it would make sense to kind of get the new talent acclimated if you are to bring in any new talent. It would make sense and to elevate some of these younger guys to bigger roles if you do move on from veterans. And we will talk about a few veterans the Titans could potentially move on from near the deadline. But yeah, you're right. The schedule does make things tough. The Thursday night game at Pittsburgh is tough, but you do have a bye week right now. The problem is there's so many moving parts as it is over there. Who's going to be your quarterback for the Falcons game? You know, you got to figure that out before anything else. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks, I assume, downtown over at Nissan in the Titans facility. But yeah, the schedule doesn't make things any easier than they're already going to be.
That's so wild to think about that you don't even know who your starting quarterback is for that Falcons game, and Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel having to juggle possibly trading away like superstar talent in the meantime before then too. Weird because like you want to give your team a chance to win and so like get things on the right track this season. You don't want to wave the white flag. And yet this bye week makes it really weird because if you had a game this weekend and you lost and you were 2-5, I think it's a lot easier to say, all right, wave the white flag. We should we unload some assets here. But and if you were to go and play a game this weekend and win and you were 3-4, then you're probably more inclined to be like, all right, let's see if we can stick around and do this thing. Maybe
Yeah.
even trade for some pieces in that case. But at 2-4 with a bye week, there's a lot of gray area here for me.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. And we can't forget that just last season, the Jaguars started off 2-6 before winning the division. And the AFC South, with the Jags playing a first place schedule, it may only take 9 or 10 wins to win this division. And I know a lot of the chat's going to say, well, the Titans can't get to 9 or 10. I don't think it's that far out of the realm of possibility. I mean, the Jags started 2-6. They finished with 9 wins last year. The Titans will start at 7-3 and blew the division to a team that started 2-6 too. So that's another way of looking at it. The Titans aren't out of the water. I mean, for as bad as this thing has started, it feels like they're, pretty far back of where they need to be in order to make the playoffs or even make a push for the playoffs. But it's not totally doom and gloom. And we had Mike Keith on the Tighten Up podcast this week, and he said, sure, there's plenty of problems going on around the team right now, but the season's not over. Like 2-4 is not a death sentence. The last time the Titans were 2-4, they made a run to the AFC Championship game in 2019. So we've seen this before, and we've seen teams come back from the dead in worse positions than the Titans are right now and make the playoffs. So that's another thing you have to factor in when we're talking about this whole conversation and what you do at the deadline.
Careful, Jack. You're talking about 2019. Yeah, I've people come for my throat anytime I bring up the 2-4 2019 start. And rightfully so, right? This team is not the 2019 team. They have, I think, a lot more issues and a much more uphill battle to climb if they want to get into the playoff picture. And as Big Jeff pointed out, this is not the same division. I think it's a much better division than even last year. But the point is, right, you look at this slate, and this is what I think I keep coming back to, and a lot of Titans optimists, if you will, keep coming back to, is this schedule. And it's the 5 of 6 games, 5 of your next 6 games coming against Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Indy, who we now know will not be with Anthony Richardson because he is going to miss the rest of the season, Jack. And so it's hard for me to not look at that and be like, oh, you still have a shot. But it's just interesting to me how divided this fan base really is. And I'm so excited to get into some of these questions because I've got Lou Man saying, we're still alive, Sam. We're still alive, Sammy Man. And we've got Andre saying, Sam wants to stay mediocre. A big divide between, who wants to win games and who wants to go into the tank mode. I, as a member of the media, would prefer to win football games because it makes my job more relevant.
Well, you would think Titans fans would also want to win football games, but there's a small minority of fans that are really hoping the Titans tank from here on out, which blows my mind because you spend all offseason waiting for football to return just to cheer against your team when the season's finally here. That's a loser mentality. Get out of the victim mentality. Get out of the loser mentality. You want your football team to win. The Titans have enough to win a handful of games in this league. Sam, pop that schedule up one more time for me if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I want y'all to look at the quarterbacks the Titans have coming up in the next 6 games. Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Baker Mayfield. You've got Trevor Lawrence, who might not even play on Thursday night. Bryce Young, Gardner Minshew. Those are very winnable football games. I know you got to go on the road for 3 of them, but those are all very winnable football games, even for a team that's struggling like the Titans have been.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, I don't know, the duality of fandom, I suppose, between tank mode and loser talk. And I do agree with you to some extent, right? Like if you wait all off season for your team to come back and for there to be football back on your television, you'd like that to last a little bit more than like 6 weeks here before like rooting against your
Yeah,
team for
come
the
on.
rest of the way. Now, if you're like me and you're like a Chicago Bears guy at heart or whatever, like at this point, yeah, we're rooting for losses. We're rooting for draft picks. The Titans aren't in that same spot right now where like you're realistically expecting to get the number 1 pick in the draft. And ultimately, I think that's where Titans fans need to like adjust their expectations. I still
Yeah.
think this team is too good to get a top 3 pick in the draft.
Mhm.
The Bears, the Panthers, Denver, those teams are effing atrocious. Like so bad. They are going to go at best 3-14. The Titans
Yeah.
aren't going to be that bad. Like even if they go into tank mode, they might finish the year 5-12. Like realistically, so we need to adjust our expectations for what it looks like because you have to ask yourself, is ruining this core, ruining any chance, is rooting for you not to win football games worth getting like the number 6 pick in the draft?
Yeah, and the Titans aren't one player away. The guy that they take in the first round of next year's draft isn't going to change the tides that drastically. I hate to break it to Titans fans. You got $80 million in cap space to look forward to. You're going to fix your issues in free agency before you do them in the draft. So, this whole thing, this whole mindset that you're going to find the answer in the draft, what gives you that confidence? I mean, Titans fans, where have you been for the last 2 decades? You've
This is
picked
so
in the
funny.
top 5. You picked in the top 5, top 10. You've landed Vince Young, Jake Locker, and Marcus Mariota. And even when Mariota came, the Titans weren't relevant until the end of his rookie deal. What gives you the confidence that they can not only, pick a guy in the top 10 that actually pans out, but also have a football team that's functional around that quarterback when you're so many pieces away? It doesn't make sense. That's why tanking is dumb.
Well, and this is like last year was a very unique year with Chicago getting number 1 overall. And still having faith in Justin Fields to be their future quarterback. Where like the team that had number 1 in a draft that number 1 was going to be a quarterback didn't want a quarterback, and so they could move out of that pick. You saw a lot of flexibility and potential for a team like Carolina, who was picking later in the first round, to move up and go get their guy. I don't imagine a world where Chicago, Denver, New England, those teams are in a position to draft a quarterback and they don't. And I also don't imagine a world where the Titans are worse than any of those teams. So, like, if you're sitting here as a Titans fan being like Drake May, Caleb Williams, and I've already seen some, if it's Drake May, it will, talking about your comment about like how that player won't change the tides. I just don't think there's any sort of realistic expectation where I don't see any world ever that the Titans end up with Drake May. Zero. Like
No,
the
no,
question
he's
is
going
like
top 5.
you might be able to get like Jared Verse or like one of those top offensive linemen, and that could help you long term, but it's not going to be a snap of the fingers.
And for all these people that also want to tank, like you have Will Levis and you really haven't seen anything from him yet. So not only are we suggesting tanking is the right idea for a quarterback, but we're doing so after the Titans took a quarterback at the top of the second round last year, and we haven't seen him play it down yet in the NFL. So
Yeah.
let's get an answer on Will Levis before any tanking discussion comes into the equation. Like you've got to see what you have first before you say, "Oh, I want to lose every game for the rest of the season for this quarterback that magically solves all of our issues." Like you might have that guy already, so you might not need to lose all of these games to go to a quarterback.
Yeah, got some super chats I'm going to get to here in a minute. But before I do that, I want to tell everybody about the Bone and Joint Institute. Don't fumble on your recovery. Go to the Bone and Joint Institute, schedule an appointment with them at boneandjointtn.org. Bone and Joint Institute is the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. They have a state-of-the-art rehab facility located out in Franklin that's got everything all under one roof, from clinic to rehab to surgery to imaging to testing. It's all there at the BJI. So make sure you head out there and don't drive all over Middle Tennessee to get to your different appointments. Go visit them for good, reliable care and schedule an appointment at boneandjointtn.org. Go listen to our doc talk, by the way, with the Bone and Joint Institute about Ryan Tannehill's ankle. Very, very good stuff there.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, and they're the king for a reason. Their selection is unmatched. It's easy to navigate for new users. And speaking of new users, You can sign up with bonus code A to Z Sports. That's ATOZ Sports. And you'll get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if that first bet misses. Up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses with code A to Z Sports. Guys, get some skin in the game. Do it with BetMGM. Take advantage of our promo code. I'll say it one more time. ATOZ Sports for up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses.
All right, Jack. We got some super chats here to get to real quick before we move on to our first question. We haven't even begun to talk about the topic of today's show, which is good though. We've got a lot of people in the chat wanting to weigh in here because it does certainly feel like this is a big time for Titans fans as they await the fate of their franchise here in the next couple of weeks. Kane comes in, says, why would it matter who you get rid of? Do you honestly believe that it would make you a Super Bowl team now, or as usual, you're projecting years out? I'm trying to figure out what he's referring to here, Jack. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Is
he
there's a lot of
people upset in the chat that I'm anti-tank, but those people need to.
I would imagine Kane is saying here
reevaluate
who you trade. Like, why does it matter who they trade? Does it make you a Super Bowl contending team now, or or as usual, you're projecting years out? Yeah, I mean, it's a projection for the future, but you do have to take advantage of assets that you have that are expiring assets. And as we have seen, or as we will talk about, the Titans have a number of veteran players that are kind of expiring assets at this point that they could get some value out of. Andre says, wanting long-term success versus a blue participation award ribbon isn't a loser mentality. Should have started future during the offseason, not spinning tires. I understand, Andre, that rooting for long-term success is the best thing for a fan base at the end of the day. I think there's a threshold that you need to cross as a team as far as your lack of success that where I said, right? If you start a season 2-6, 2-7, start rooting for the tank. I don't blame you whatsoever. If you want to sit there and root for losses at 2-6, 2-7, okay. If the Titans come out and 2 weeks from now they've lost to Atlanta and then turned around and lost to Pittsburgh on Thursday Night Football, be my guest, root for the tank. I'll come on here on the show and say the Titans need to tank. That will be my opinion that I will hold. You can hold me to that. I don't think at 2-4, they're anywhere close to dead. And when you still have hope, I think fan bases should lean on the side of trying to look optimistically, trying to just get why not? Why not care? Why not have some rooting interest? Why not get yourself through a couple more weeks of willing the Titans to victory, even if they're going to let you down? Why not?
And here's the thing,
football season.
No matter what you or I think or what anyone in the chat thinks, I'll tell you what Mike Vrabel thinks. He's not going to tank. Mike Vrabel is not a coach who's going to tank. Number one, he's lost 11 out of 13 games as it is without trying to tank. So at some point, his reputation is going to come into the equation if it hasn't already. And, we talked on the Tighten Up podcast about plugging in the Bunsen burner. Things are starting to get warm over there if you start losing even more games than you already have. He's coaching to win football games. So no matter if you want to tank or not, Mike Vrabel does not have that mindset. I hate to break it to you guys.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be wild because Amy Adams Strunk made it very clear last year when she fired John Robinson that she means business and wants to win. I think Mike Vrabel's a very good head coach. I think it would be a mistake to fire Mike Vrabel. And yet if they go into this sort of tank mode and they finish the season 5-12, like I mentioned, I don't know how Miss Amy's going to take to that. I don't know if she'll be too receptive to that sort of finish. Jake also circles back to the fun part of this, where it's hey, like I said, they're 2-6. They lose to Atlanta and Pittsburgh. By all means, embrace the tank. It is too late to trade assets at that point. So this is why this is such a fun conversation and why I feel like you could be on both sides of the aisle here. Andre, last super chat, says this team can't compete with the top of the AFC and this division is widening the gap. We need as much top young talent as we can get. I don't
mean closing the gap in the division is probably
widening the gap is what he means. Between the Titans and the top of the division is starting to separate. Mainly referring to probably Jacksonville, which
There's more teams in the division to worry about than Jack. Like the Texans and Colts have absolutely closed that gap that we thought was there this offseason.
yeah, but they've
right?
closed the gap with Jacksonville and like surpassed
True.
the Titans at this point. I mean, I don't disagree with any of this. I don't disagree with you. I think you need top young talent. You need to turn things around. Is
But you
now the
also
right time to jump off that ledge, though?
You also want to make sure that you have the right, places or the right pieces in place when it comes to culture, right? You're bringing in this new young core. You're
Yeah.
hopefully going to hit on Will Levis. You've got Tajay Spears, who looks like a stud already. Traylon Burks, if he can just stay healthy and figure it out on the field, you start to feel really good about it. And then there's some guys on defense that you're really happy about. Not in the secondary, but most McCreary's shown things. The pass rush is always good. So you want to make sure that you have the right pieces in place to where veterans in free agency, when you have all this money, nobody wants to come to a team that just tanked. Nobody wants to come to a team with that losers stink all over them. So while you have all this money in free agency that you're looking forward to spending next offseason, make sure it's an environment that attracts other high-priced free agents and free agents who are ready to win now. Because that's what we're talking about, winning in the future. You can't win in the future if nobody wants to come play for you.
Yeah. I don't know. This is what makes it fun. I mean, let's go ahead and get into our questions here because we do have rumors beginning to swirl. And Diana Rossini on The Athletic came out with an article 4 days ago, Jack, that said the Titans, one of these teams looking to unload some of their veteran assets. At the trade deadline, they're still considering it. And so Bleacher Report followed up with an article that had some Derrick Henry trade proposals, and here's what they came up with. These are the 4 trades that Bleacher Report mocked up for Derrick Henry. Titans get wide receiver Devin Duvernay, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick from Baltimore. The Titans get running back Latavius Murray, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick from Buffalo. The Titans get a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick from the Bengals, or the Titans get Boston Scott, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick from the Eagles. What is your initial reaction to that? Because I thought these personally were crazy.
3 of the 4 are crazy because you're trading Derrick Henry to not only an AFC team, but a hated AFC kind of rival as the way things have turned over the last few years for the Bengals. You've got the Ravens, who you hate. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons just tried to fight Odell Beckham reportedly after the game. You don't want to give Derrick. I would die if I saw Derrick Henry in a Ravens jersey. Same thing with the Bills. Right? I don't want the Bills to have Derrick Henry. I don't want to.
The Eagles with A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
That would be objectively hilarious, though.
As bad as Howie Roseman and the Eagles have fleeced the Titans
and
in
Marcus
the past,
Mariota.
They're not going to hurt you in the future. You're not going to see the Eagles on the schedule for a handful of years, so you might avoid Derrick Henry altogether. Whereas the rest of those teams, if you plan on making the postseason ever, Derrick Henry's going to be there. And if he runs all over the Titans defense, which he's capable of doing to any good defense, that stings so much more. So 3 of those 4 are crazy, but it's not really about where he goes right now when we're talking about the trade rumors. It's about what the Titans can get in return.
Yeah. I just now need this to happen, and Titans fans are going to kill me for saying this. I just think it would be hilarious. Give me Derrick Henry traded to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts getting hurt in the playoffs. And then a playoff team of Marcus Mariota with Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown.
Yeah, that would
nice. That'd be objectively hilarious. That'd be like wild. A lot of people are saying that these trades are ridiculous, and I agree. I don't think it's based off of where they go. I think it's because of the compensation. And Jack, I think this is, and maybe I'm wrong here, I think this is way too much. Like, I don't think the Titans will get anywhere near this for Derrick Henry. I'm interested in seeing what the chat thinks. So let's get to our first question here. What is your ideal price tag for a Derrick Henry trade package? If the Titans were to trade Derrick Henry, what is your ideal price tag? What would it take for you to sign off on the trade? That's kind of what we're asking here. Before we do that, want to tell everybody about our friends at Krebs Kubota. Krebs Kubota is an elite Kubota dealer Krebs Kubota is Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment dealer with convenient locations in Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. Krebs is the elite Kubota dealer that has served the community for over 18 years. Krebs Kubota sells, services, and supplies parts for the best equipment in the industry and has a large selection of inventory and stock at all 3 locations right now. Krebs Kubota believes customer satisfaction is rooted in outstanding parts and service departments. It's their goal to have the best parts and service in the industry, which stands behind the best equipment in the industry. For all of your Kubota needs, visit them online at KrebsKubota.com.
For all of your sports betting needs, visit BetMGM.com, the king of sports books. For a reason, they've got plenty of live betting features, parlay selection options, boosted odds specials, and so much more over at BetMGM. But right now, new users can take advantage of a special offer. Use promo code A to Z Sports and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. ATOZ Sports gets you up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Sign up tonight. NHL, MLB playoffs, NFL, college football, college basketball is on the horizon. The sports season is in full swing. Don't miss out on anything. Get some skin in the game. And when you do that, do it with BetMGM and our promo code ATOZ Sports.
All right, Jack. Let's see what the chat is saying here. I asked everybody what their ideal price tag for Derrick Henry is if the Titans were to move him. What is your ideal price tag if the Titans were to move him? Run Left says we're lucky to get a 4th-round pick, if we're honest, a 3rd-round pick, and that's it. Even that's asking a lot. A 2024 3rd is what Steven says. A 3rd is what Joey says. A 2 and a 5th this year and a 7th next year from Zach. The Eagles' proposal is what Paul wants, which is a player. And right, there was a player in the Eagles' proposal, and
Boston Scott.
Boston Scott, a 2nd and a 5th. I'd take Gainwell and a 2nd rounder, a 3rd at least, low 2nd at the most. A 2nd is what Denise wants. A 3rd from Billy. A 2nd rounder is the best we could get from Titans Kyle. A 3rd and a 5th from Jason. A 3rd and a 4th from Reggie. A 3rd and some cornerback depth from Matt. Let's see. Soul says nothing. Doesn't want to move on from Derrick. A 2nd-round pick, says Ernie. Don't insult him for less than a 4th, says Run Left. Ideal, a 1st-round pick. Ideal isn't realistic, though. Yeah, we're going to try and be realistic with these. Yeah. Wide receiver and a mid-pick, 2nd to 4th-round pick, says Big Ten Jeff. Jack, what is your price tag that would get the deal done here for a Derrick Henry trade?
Well, let's look at what happened last year at the deadline. Christian McCaffrey, who, is a different player than Derrick Henry, but I think that they're both highly respected at their running back position for what they've done over the last, handful of years. Christian McCaffrey got traded, and his tag wasn't even a 1st-round pick, right? He was traded for a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th-round pick. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Looking at the draft this upcoming offseason, the Titans have just 5 picks. A 1st-rounder, a 2nd-rounder, a 4th-rounder, and 2 7th-rounders.
Say those again real quick. Say those again real quick.
The Titans draft picks in 2024 is a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and 2 7th-round picks. So you'd like to recoup some draft capital if at all possible. Now, the question of do you or do you not want to trade Derrick Henry is an important one. I don't think you trade Derrick Henry. I don't think you ever trade Derrick Henry, to be quite honest with you. And I don't think you trade him right now because his value is low. You would be selling low on Derrick Henry. 4.3 yards a carry is tied for the lowest in his career since 2017. So you don't have the prime Derrick Henry that teams are used to seeing. And not that it's his fault. The offensive line in front of him hasn't really, done a whole lot to make holes up front for him to run through. So you're selling low with Derrick Henry. And I like the chat. I would kind of be surprised if the Titans were able to get a 2nd and another pick out of Derrick Henry. I know that he's still valuable, and we saw last week, Mike Keefe made a good point on the podcast this week, that like Derrick Henry hasn't lost a step. He doesn't, that 63-yard run goes for 15 or 20 if he had, right? He doesn't have that breakaway speed from the 3rd level of a defense if he's lost a step. Like Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. He just doesn't have Lawan, Saffold, Jones, Davis blocking in front of him anymore. So it just feels like you would be selling low on, really the most valuable player to your franchise, maybe since Steve McNair was a Titan. So for that reason, I don't think you do it. But if I had to put a price tag on it, if you could get a second and a mid-round pick like a fourth-round pick, then I think you have to consider it. But to me, I don't think I would trade Derrick Henry.
That feels like a lot, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any way you're getting a second and a mid-round pick for Derrick Henry. And perhaps that's why, like, this doesn't happen. I should also say here that I do agree with you in a lot of ways. I don't think the Titans are going to trade Derrick Henry. I have a really hard time. And it's similar to what it was in the offseason for me. I have a hard time seeing a team overpay for him. And I have a hard time seeing the Titans moving on from Derrick, knowing kind of what it symbolizes to the fan base, knowing what it does to a locker room, knowing how it can kind of tear your team apart if they're not getting like overcompensation for what they should be getting for Derrick. Realistically, like if we were being honest here, if you got a third round pick for Derrick Henry, that's a trade you should take. Like it's he's not worth a third round pick at this age with the amount of money that he's making, with the fact that he only is on the field half the time for you anyways. If you get a third round pick for that guy, you take that deal, especially when we see the good running backs that are coming out of these drafts in like rounds 2, 3, and 4. It is a little bit different when you're talking about the brand of Derrick Henry. And so my answer would be like a third. If the Titans got a third, because you said they've got a 1, a 2, and a 4. They don't have a third round pick. If you traded Derrick Henry and got into the third round, I wouldn't blame them a ton. But if we're talking sitting here like offloading Derrick Henry for a day 3 NFL draft pick, I'm going to be pretty upset. I think the fan base should be too. And either way, I think people are going to be upset if they move on from Derrick, but like we have to understand value. We have to be objective about that.
Sure. I agree. And it's a tough conversation to have. I think a lot of people feel like Tyrus, right? I'd rather have Henry walk away as a free agent instead of getting some late round draft pick for him.
I agree.
You know, it's first of all, I don't know if you win one of the next 2 games, you're at 3-5, and the deadline comes. Are you sure you're ready to move on from Derrick Henry? Are you sure this team's eliminated from playoff contention? I'm not so sure in the AFC South. I'm not so sure with the way that these AFC wildcard teams have looked this season, looking at you Chargers, looking at you Bengals. So, you know, I think that there's still going to be a chance, even if you're 3-5, to crack the playoffs. Now you have to get hot. You have to really figure it out, and you have to have a healthy Tannehill, which you might not have for some time soon. But if you do move on from Henry and you do trade him, you do have to get the most for him. And sadly, I would be shocked if somebody was willing to give up a 2 for Derrick Henry. So
yeah.
I would be hesitant to move on in general from him.
I agree. Like, I think I agree with you on that aspect. And we gotta, I mean, like Dylan saying I'm out of my mind and whatever. Balthazar wants to know when the trade deadline is. Yes, it's the 31st.
Halloween.
I'm not out of my mind here. Like a third rounder is, if the Titans traded Derrick Henry for a third rounder, I think the narrative would actually be nationally, the Titans did well in this trade. The Titans, like, to get a third rounder for an older running back on an expiring contract for 6 games or whatever it would be at that time. Good job, Titans. I think that's the vibe. Now, what it means for your franchise, your fan base, all of that stuff is why you probably don't end up moving him in general. But I think that that's a fair price tag to put on the trade. But we can.
And another thing is, what message does that send across the league, right? I think everybody in the NFL knows that if the MVP actually went to the most valuable player, Derrick Henry probably wins that like 3 times with the Titans, right?
No,
because he was without a doubt the most valuable player to his team in the NFL and has been for quite some time now. So what message is that?
That's a whole different conversation. We're not going to.
No, right. but listen to me. Hear my point. What message does that send to veterans that want to compete and win at a high level here? Like if the Titans move on from Derrick Henry, then man, like this, the whole business side of the NFL really is true.
I don't agree with that at all. I mean, like, yeah, that's what it is.
It sends a message, no doubt about it.
But the message is the same as it is everywhere else. Like, this is a business. And like, when you're old, and you're, coming down on expiring contracts, you can get traded. Like, I don't think that means anything other than maybe an indictment on the running back position again, as we've talked about, like the way that teams like to cycle in and out guys at running back. Derrick Henry's been one of the most consistent guys, obviously staying with the Titans, being their bell cow back for the last 6 years or whatever it's been since he took over as the starter. So I think that would be the only message, is that, like, hey, even the Titans are now taking notes and moving on from Derrick Henry, knowing that they probably have a better option somewhere else. And whether that could be Tajay Spears and another guy that you draft in the third round, and then you get younger and you get cheaper and you reset the clock. That's the business side of this thing. And Derrick Henry's not going to be a Titan forever, but I will move on. Because I know this is not a fun conversation to have. I wish we weren't having this right
No, it
now.
sucks.
I wish we were talking about like what wide receiver the Titans could add to their roster, or what offensive lineman or cornerback they could trade for to fill out their depth, because they're looking like they're going to make the playoffs. And, I wish that was the conversation we're having, but we're not. But I will move on because to maybe something that's going to ruffle even more feathers. I don't know here. Because there are more people on this roster than just Derrick Henry. When we first brought up the idea, Jack, of the Titans making a trade, I saw a comment that said trade D-Hop to the Chiefs, which I've certainly seen floated out there on the internet as well. Then you have other veterans like Kevin Byard. You have veterans like Denico Autry. A lot of different guys that could potentially gain some interest and have some value as the trade deadline approaching. Mike Vrabel, this is him talking to the media earlier this week. He's not afraid to trade assets if he feels like it's what's going to help the team.
Game day roster.
Would you consider trading assets at the deadline and prioritizing a draft pick in next year's draft?
I think we would always consider trying to strengthen the team, whether that's right now, this week, or in the future. Absolutely. Thanks.
Always consider trading assets to strengthen the team. A lot of different ways you could look into that and read into that. But Jack, it got my wheel spinning and your wheel spinning about what outside of Derrick Henry the Titans could potentially move on from. And so I ask you guys this question: what veteran Titans player do you think is most likely to get traded at the deadline? What veteran Titans player do you think is most likely to get traded at the deadline? Again, sensitive subject. Trade talk always is. Sorry about all of that. But before we do that,
that's part of what this show is, though. We have the tough conversations. We ask the tough questions. You're not always going to agree with Sam or myself. So that's what makes this fun. We all have different opinions, and some people take it a little more personally than others. But they're tough conversations, but that's what makes them fun to have.
Hey, yes, sir. Before we get to your answers and Jack and I give you ours, I want to tell everybody about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Better coverage, better rates, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. A lot has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some things have stayed the same. Like Farm Bureau Health Plans, they've always valued personal relationships. They still do to this day, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That's fbhp.com/ATOZ.
If you're looking to get a little skin in the game, and look no further than BetMGM, it's the perfect place for sports bettors. If you're just starting off in your sports betting era, use BetMGM and use it especially for this reason. We're offering a promo code right now, ATOZ Sports. Gets you up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Sign up tonight. Bet Thursday night football. Or maybe you want to bet on Saturday, some college football action. You can do whatever you want with your money, but make sure you use our promo code to get a little extra green in your account. Use code ATOZ Sports to get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses with BetMGM.
All right, we asked the question, what veteran Titans player do you think is most likely to get traded at this year's deadline? You heard Mike Vrabel pretty open to the idea of moving on from assets. So, Jack, Do you want to go to the chat? Should I go to the chat?
Yeah,
How we
yeah.
feel?
Send me to the chat. I
All right,
want to dive into
go
the
to the chat and let's see what the people are
This
saying.
This is how hostile and toxic things are right now. Denise starts us off, doesn't even go player. She wants to trade Vrabel for being stubborn. JQ says trade Derrick Henry. JQ has been fired up in the comment section. It's nice to see him with just a 2-word answer here. KB says Austin Bond. Curtis says Byard. Anthony Ham says Byard. Steven says D-Hop. Brent Matlock says Byard. Rich says Byard. Ernie says Autry. Orlando says KB or Landry. Landry would be a really tough guy to trade, especially with that contract coming off of an ACL. Don't think that's very likely, but that's who he would like to trade. Major Keys says KB. Bama says Tart. So does Brad Anderson. Moving on, we got American Tab says, God, I hope Dillard. I don't know what you could get for him. Maybe a half-eaten bag of Lay's potato chips. Henry from Hello Ladies, who's also been very passionate today. We appreciate your passion, Hello Ladies. Nate says Autry. Major Key says D-Hop. Tart or Fulton from Dustin Borton. It's interesting because we just saw how valuable Tart is in his absence, and obviously Fulton hasn't played up to a nice draft pick to trade for. Jonathan says Byard. Jason says Henry and Hopkins. Steven says Tart. Pastor Raymond says KB. Let's see, moving on. Luman says Spears and Willis and D-Hop. Kind of all over the place with that answer, Luman. Sean Gill says KB. Autry says Jacob. Eddie says Byard. Scott says Byard. Paulie D says Byard. Demetrius says D-Hop. So, Sam, I'm going to turn this question to you.
Yeah.
Which Titans veteran would you most like to see get traded?
Not who I would like to see get traded. Who I think is most likely to get traded. Yeah, we got important clarification there. I don't want anybody to get traded here. If Derek, Kevin, Danico, if you guys are DeAndre, if you guys are listening, I don't want you to get traded. I like you here in Music City. So just keep that in mind.
Well, who do you believe is most likely to be dealt?
You know, Chad opened my eyes to like the Tier Tart thing, which I think is really interesting. I will stick to my initial inkling and say Kevin Byard of the group. It's tough, man. I think Danico right now is sort of irreplaceable for the Titans up front. I think they need to try and keep pressure on the quarterback. His contract is not one that I'd be like too overwhelmed at like trying to move. I think you get the least for him possibly of that group. So there's less motivation to move him. Derek, for all the reasons we just talked about, I think his name and idea of Derrick Henry would make the fan base sort of riot. I don't know. It's tough because I don't think the Titans trade Kevin Byard, but I think if there's one of these scenarios that I could foresee, that would be the one. I don't think the Titans are going to trade Kevin Byard. I think it's a lot more likely than moving D-Hop, who has a second year on his contract and could potentially be a piece for a guy like Will Levis to throw to next year, or the Titans trading Derrick Henry for a bucket of balls just because when you know how much he means to this city and this fan base. So I would say of the veteran players on expiring deals, I think KB is somebody who you could still get value for, who the Titans would be motivated potentially to get out from that contract, knowing how much money that they pay him on his game checks and what his base salary looks like. And if KB is open to it, because I think, you know, you want to get him on a contender. You want to get him a chance to get into the postseason. But I do think that there is a good enough relationship between the organization and Kevin there where you're like, hey, man, if you want to stay, like, we're not going to move you. But, you know, that would be the one that I could see.
Okay. To me, I think that there are two guys that are more likely than the other two guys. I'll start with the most likely, in my opinion, and that's Denico Autry. I think that Denico Autry makes the most sense because of the season that he's already having. He's got 4 sacks on the year. He's on pace for a double-digit sack season. There is value there. There are teams that do need an extra pass rusher. We saw the Chiefs just get desperate and bring Frank Clark back after it didn't work out in Denver. So there are contenders out there who need a pass rusher like Autry. And looking at last year's deadline, Robert Quinn, the Chicago Bear, a guy you're familiar with, did nothing in the first half of the season, and he still went for a 4th-round draft pick. I think there's a small chance that Autry could get you a 3, most likely a 4. But if you can get a 4 for Autry, I think you have enough depth behind him to be able to fill in that gap to where you're not missing him as bad as you might miss some of the other guys like Kevin Byard, like Derrick Henry. So that's why I think Autry is the most likely. Now, the second guy I'm going to name.
And real quick about Autry, so Adrian says KB being traded is a bad look for the franchise, which
I agree.
Fair. I mean, it's the same as Derrick Henry. And so I guess the one argument for Autry is you don't have that with Denico Autry. You can trade Denico Autry without fans getting like all upset about it and wanting to like storm Nissan Stadium because you're traded away their favorite player. People like Denico Autry. He's been a great Titan, lived up to his contract. Absolutely. And so I think, there's fond memories of Autry. Jason wants to know who's replacing Autry. And I do think this is another reason that could make him expendable is while they haven't done it so far, you do have a Rashad Weaver, a Travis Gibson.
Yes.
You have guys like this on your team that could, work into the rotation without feeling a huge loss. The question I think about Denico is what's the offer? Because if it is a 3rd or a 4th, I think he's gone. The question is, can you get that much for a guy at his age? I don't know. The Robert Quinn thing's interesting. To keep in mind, Robert Quinn was coming off of an 18.5 sack season that year that he got.
But was a totally different player in the year he was traded.
True. I just think
hasn't been the
living
same
off
since.
the 18.5 a little bit, and the pedigree
that could have
gained from that. But
that could have boosted his value. You're right.
You might have talked me into Autry here. I might have to pivot my answer because
let me get to my D-Hop bit here. Okay. I think that DeAndre Hopkins, because he's not a part of the long-term solution anyways, right? He's up there in age. He's still productive. He's not getting a whole lot of footballs thrown his way. And the yardage and the offensive output, and he still has no touchdowns, probably isn't where you'd want it to be in order to maximize his value. But the market says that you don't have to be producing at a high rate in order to get a decent little compensation, decent little draft haul for a wide receiver. Just last year, Kadarius Toney was traded from the New York Jets. Kadarius Toney went from the New York Jets to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 3rd and a 6th.
Chase Claypool got a 2nd
and a 6th. And Chase Claypool got a 2nd. A great point. So I think that teams would be more willing to overpay for D-Hop because of the pedigree, because of his ability, which he's still shown at times with the Titans. And we saw it a couple of weeks ago against the Colts where it felt like he was unguardable. I think you could end up getting the most bang for your buck by dealing Hopkins. Now that puts whatever quarterback you want to turn to after Tannehill in a tough position because the cupboard is pretty bare at the wide receiver position at that point. But I think you could get the most bang for your buck for D-Hop. But there's a backside to that, which how much does that hurt one of these new quarterbacks that you're hoping can change the direction of the franchise moving forward?
Yeah. So that's the thing with the Hopkins thing is you have him under contract at a team-friendly rate, I believe, at least, for next season. And so I would imagine the plan for Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon and them is not to suck next year. Even if this team is not it and you're 6-11 and 7-10, the cap space, the draft picks, whatever, I think the Titans want to make another run at this. Like you said, Mike Vrabel does not like to lose. They don't like to rebuild. They don't like to tank. And so if your plan is to try and field a competitive team, you're going to need some wide receivers and you're going to wish you had a guy like DeAndre Hopkins this time next year if you trade him now. So that's the negative to trading him. Plus, he likes Nashville. And I like some Music City D-Hop. He's taken to the country music scene. Jack, let's move on to our final question here. It's more of a big picture question for the chat. I can go ahead and play this from Mike Vrabel one more time when he was asked if the Titans would consider being sellers at this year's trade deadline.
Game day roster.
Would you consider trading assets at the deadline and prioritizing a draft pick in next year's draft?
I think we would always consider trying to strengthen the team, whether that's right now, this week, or in the future. Absolutely. Thanks.
So there's Mike Vrabel on what he would consider doing, what him and Rand are going to consider doing, and it leads us to this question. Not as much of a prediction as much as it is your big opinion on the subject. With the trade deadline looming on Halloween, should the Titans be buyers, sellers, or stay put? Buyers, sellers, or stay put? What should the Titans do when that trade deadline comes in here on October 31st? Before we get to your answers and Jack and my answers, I want to tell everybody about the Aura app. Aura, anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full name, personal email, home address, phone number, even your relatives. But Aura found about 30 data brokers who had my information and already actively removed my information from all of them. Like it took 25 at first and 28. Now it's got all of them gone. So data brokers that profit from selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants more information off you, they no longer have your information to sell. I don't get calls from spam callers anymore. I don't get unknown numbers. I don't get 1-800 numbers and people where there's a robot on the other end after I answer my phone. It's very nice. It's nice to know that my information is safe and protected. That's all thanks to Aura. They also have a VPN, a password manager, real-time credit and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls that protects all of your devices from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool that you'll ever need all inside one app. So you go on there, you punch in basically just what you're looking for, your first and last name, your email, and then you go to aura.com/ATOZ to get a 2-week free trial with that link. Make sure you protect yourself online. I've done it. Jack's done it. Zach has done it. Austin has done it. So aura.com/ATOZ for a 2-week free trial.
Check out BetMGM if you're looking to get some skin in the game this football season, perhaps even this basketball season, hockey season, whatever you want. It's all going on right now. Use our promo code new users, sign up with ATOZ Sports, and you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Code A to Z Sports gets you up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet misses, you can bet on whatever you'd want, but make sure you use our promo code to sign up so you can take advantage of this offer. I'll read it one more time. ATOZ Sports gets you your first, code A to Z Sports gets you up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses, only at BetMGM.
All right, Jack, it's time for our big picture question. We can get through it pretty quickly here so we can get to our end of show topic. But should the Titans be buyers, sellers, or stay put? That is the big question here with the trade deadline approaching. Steven says stay put. So does Titans Kyle. Ashley wants them to buy for the offensive line. Luman says they should be sellers. Jason says stay put. Jeff says sellers, get as many picks as they can. Scott says stay put. Bork says sellers. Scott says buyers, they need an offensive line. Sellers from American Toff. Sellers from Dylan White. Sell the farm, says Jesse. Sellers from Paul. Sellers, we don't have anything to give up draft-wise. Sellers now, buyers in the offseason, says Alex. Interesting approach there.
Wow, logic has entered the conversation all of a sudden. It only took us an hour, but logic has finally entered the conversation.
Sellers from Eddie, buyers from J. Rome, anything that's being sold at left tackle, buyers from B-Birds, buyers, if not buyers, stay put, says Jaron, doesn't want them to trade assets away. Buy, trade a first and Burks for Devontae Adams. Whoa.
How do you fix this team in the draft if you do that?
Wow. Yeah, I'm good on that one, Ryan Fields. I like Devontae Adams, but I'm good on that. David says buyers, stay put, says Ben. No one is trading a good O-lineman, says Scott, basically saying you can't just go buy a good left tackle, which I agree with. Darren says sell. Sell. Hashtag trust the tank from Steven. Mixed answers here. Jack Gentry, buy, sell, stay put. Where are you at?
Well, first, I want to say one of these answers is totally wrong. There's one answer that is more wrong than the other two, and that answer is buyers. You have no picks to get rid of in order to be buyers, right? You have 5 draft picks. I'll read them again. You have a first, a second, a fourth, and 2 sevenths in this upcoming draft. You can't really get rid of the first, second. I mean, maybe you get rid of the fourth, but then your hands are really tied when it comes to the draft. You can't improve your team as much as you want to. And maybe there's not as big of an emphasis on the draft with that $80 million in salary cap space that they have to spend this offseason. But you're really putting yourselves in a tough spot. And you want to get younger. You want to get cheaper. You want to get faster. but you also still want to maintain a playoff caliber level of football. And it's hard to do that, like not only next year, but in the future when you don't have a whole lot of draft picks to work with. And there are plenty of free agents you can go get this offseason, but I just don't think that now at 2-4 without Tannehill for the, probably, at least a game, most likely, like high ankle sprains don't heal quickly. Like he's probably realistically going to miss at least one game. I don't think you're in a position to buy. I don't think you're in a position to win now like they have been the past few years. So for that reason, I think it's either sell or stay put. While I don't think that there should be a fire sale in downtown Nashville, I think that you probably do need to recoup some draft capital in at least one trade, whether that be Denico Autry, DeAndre Hopkins, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, like we've all talked about. You probably need to find a way to add a third-round pick one way or another here. So to me, I guess I'd lean sell, but also it's not, you don't need to sell the farm at the deadline.
I go back and forth. I think you're right. I don't think there's any way they can be buyers. So I think it has to be one of these other two. I'm going to say stay put. And maybe that's naive of me. I don't think this season is over. And maybe that's very naive of me, but
it's not over.
I still believe the Titans this season have enough pieces to win. They need to get healthy. They need Treylon Burks back, and they probably need Ryan Tannehill back. But I think we came into the year knowing that 2-4 after the first 6 weeks was a possibility. It's a lot uglier of a 2-4 than I anticipated. Hand up, granted, fair. But it's still 2-4 with 5 of your next 6 games against bad quarterbacks, very winnable. I have a hard time waving the white flag right now. Maybe that's the romantic in me. Maybe that's like the guy that is like, hey, there's still a chance. Don't give up hope. And I want to root and hope that they can come out on top and find a way out of this crater. I don't think they're dead yet. And I think they should, I think for morale purposes, you stay put. Like, if you're not going to get overwhelmed, like you can't be dumb, right? Somebody comes and's like, oh, we'll give you a 2nd and a 5 for Denico Autry. You probably have to take that deal. But I don't think you're dumb about it. I think you need to not just trade pieces just to trade pieces just because they have. So what pieces, Sam? Well, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, Denico Autry, DeAndre Hopkins.
Like, what are we looking for? Like a couple thirds and
Azeez Al-Shire, Sean Murphy Bunting, any of these like vets. I think he's saying what pieces do they have? I mean, I still think they've got a lot of talent. I do still think they've got a lot of talent. And I know, yes, it's wishful thinking. It is. So, okay, come after me. That's fine. I think they should stay put. I don't make a trade just to make a trade. And I'm going to try and hold out hope for this season. I do literally, Jack, I think there's a realistic chance. And I don't know what the quarterback situation depends who starts at quarterback. If it's Malik Willis, Canham, if they're planning to start Malik Willis on Sunday against Atlanta, trade everybody now. You're not winning.
That tells me that
you're not winning that football game if you're trade. I don't know why this just got me heated all of a sudden, but like, yeah, if you are Mike Vrabel and you're sitting here planning to play Malik against the Falcons, trade the whole damn farm because you're not winning that football game.
That exactly. You're tanking there, right then and there.
Can go, or you want to maybe give Will Levis a chance to go and mix things up. I think there's a chance the Titans can win that game. I think there's a chance the Titans can beat Pittsburgh. I don't think you're doing it with Malik Willis. So
Jonathan has a funny comment. Willis is the way to tank. That is right. If
true,
you want to tank,
so like if you're doing that,
Malik Willis is your tank commander. He is sitting atop the tank. He is giving the directions, which direction to go, who to fire at. He is your tank commander. If you want to tank, you throw Malik Willis out there. That's what you do. You've seen enough of him. If he's out there, that tells me that you don't care about this season and that it's all over. And in your mind, there's no chance that you come back from this 2-4 start. If Malik Willis starts the game, I agree. Trade everyone because you clearly have no hopes for this season.
This is where we've circled back to. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. Let's move on here. Let's get to our end of show topic. I have some news about the Magic Bucket, but here we go. All right, it's Thursday. It's Magic Bucket Day. Let's get to Wilson County Hyundai first, and then I'll tell you guys the news about it. Wilson County Hyundai, make them a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. They make the end of show segments each and every time happen. They're the place to go for your new ride. Jack, Austin Stanley still has the Magic Bucket. It's a Thursday on the Magic Bucket Day. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to one of my favorites, one of my personal favorite end of show topics, where we put the power in the hands of the chat, and we're going to do the old school Ask Me Anything. Sometimes the Ask Me Anything is, Austin comes with a question. We all answer Austin's question. I'm going to turn it to the chat. Go anyway. We used to do the Ask Sam stuff and have some conversations that way on Monday mornings. So Ask Me Anything is going to be our end of show topic today. Fire the questions, and Jack and I maybe have some. It can be a debate. It can be just out of your curiosity. It doesn't have to be Titans related at all. It doesn't have to be football related at all. It doesn't have to be A to Z sports related at all. And Orlando with a great example early on.
Orlando cracking me up.
Jack, how do you like your eggs?
Soft scrambled. Thank you very much.
Soft scrambled.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay kind of put me onto that. He's got this famous scrambled eggs recipe where you kind of beat them for like 30 seconds on the heat, then 30 seconds off heat, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and boom, they're done. With a little chive sprinkle on top. Yeah, that's the way I like my eggs.
I'm an over easy guy. I like a little yolk. I like being able to break the yolk and mix it in with my rice and stuff. So yeah, I am a little egg picky though. I like it. Yeah, runny. Yes. Oh gosh, if you're eating like a hard yolk in 2023, you belong in prison. Like, what are we doing? Agree. Favorite NFL player of all time from Ashley. Do you have a favorite NFL player of all time? Mine's Jay Cutler.
I sure do.
So
that's also mine. So we're on the same page.
Jay Cutler, baby.
The Vanderbilt Commodore. We have that in common.
Vanderbilt Commodore, Chicago Bear. I know it's absurd. And, most people hate him.
His career would have been totally different if the Broncos didn't fire Mike Shanahan. I'll go ahead and say it. Stephen King says, Jack, are you related to Amanda Gentry? No, I am not related to
Amanda J. Yeah, I got one here too. We've got a Justin, our resident Astros fan. Why don't I like the Astros? Do you really want me to answer this, Justin?
Why do you like
I
the
don't
Astros?
Like you? Is that's not a serious question? Why does everybody not like the Astros? One, you never like the team that keeps winning. Two, you don't like the team that cheats. It's point blank. It's period. It's not.
No.
And you don't like the team that bounces your team. I'm a White Sox fan. I got one playoff experience in my entire life, and they lost to the damn Astros. So, yeah, I hate the Astros. I root against them. Sorry about you. Let's see. What's my workout plan to get in 2XL shirts? It depends on the day, man. It depends what we're hitting for the day. If we're hitting push, pull, legs, it's a nice little rotation going on. And then if you want to get into 2XL, just eat food or don't eat food or go the other way. I mean, hey, people underestimate what a diet can do of just calorie intake. Let's see what else.
John Moreland asks a very important question. Jack, how long have you been growing your beard? Are you ready to give it up yet? Yeah, I was kind of hoping like a facial hair vibe would change the Titan season, but it clearly hasn't. So maybe it is time to give it up on the bye week. That decision you'll probably see the results of that decision next Thursday when I'm back on for Magic Bucket. So stay tuned.
We got some people giving their favorite NFL player in here. We got Fran Tarkenton, McNair, Dan Fouts, Warren Moon. Do you have just like a general unpopular opinion, Jack?
Well, according to the chat, I have a lot of them. I'm trying to think of one in particular that's more unpopular than the others. Do you have one while I try and
I'm also trying to like think. It would have to be. I feel like I need some sort of direction on where to go with my unpopular opinion.
There's a tough question.
Yeah, this feels a little loaded. I definitely have a lot of them. I'm not sure though what off the top of my head. It's a little tough. Okay. I will. I got one now. I got one now. This is just off the top of my head. I think country music kind of sucks now.
I don't even know if that's unpopular anymore.
But like I'm the other because I'm not somebody who is like, oh, country, all you like, whatever. I was a huge country music fan for a very long time until I got into folk music, and now all country is like it just doesn't do it for me anymore. Sean wants to know Apple or Android. It's Apple, guys. Come on. It's Apple. Right?
It's always been Apple.
We can't be doing Androids in 2023. Respectfully, we can't be doing
All right, let's do a couple more, Sam, and then we'll get out of here. American Taff asks a pretty relevant question to the NFL, as sad as this is. Sam or Jack, which one's the bigger Swiftie? I like Taylor Swift. I don't listen to her like regularly. I can appreciate greatness when I see it, but that's as far as my Swift fandom goes.
Yeah, it's me. It's
you
me.
Got that one?
Yeah, I'm hey, Taylor Swift
You're
guy.
The problem, it's you.
I saw the Eras Tour movie last weekend, Jack. This is well documented. By the way, guys, didn't suck. Like, was not bad. Just want to get that out there.
So if you're looking for a movie this weekend, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour movie didn't suck. That's quite a strong vouch there, Sam.
It didn't suck. I appreciate theater. I appreciate I appreciate theater. And so Taylor Swift is a very, very good performer. You don't have to like be obsessed with her music to go and like appreciate the fact that it's a 3-hour plus concert where she's moving and dancing and singing and does not miss a beat and is just top notch the whole time. And she knows how to play to the crowd. Big Taylor Swift guy. I think she, very warranted in some of her love. And I actually think it's very interesting because it's weird. I hear my parents talk about like the Beatles. I hear my grandma talk about like Elvis and stuff. We're like living through a generational talent that like will be in like the history books. Taylor Swift right now. And I think people need to step back and appreciate that a little bit.
All right. And that was the Taylor Swift minute from Sam Phelan.
Hey, so yeah, supposedly she's already made $100 million from the movie. She knows how to play the game, man. She's balling. So yeah, I do. And well, maybe I am a teenage girl at heart, but you listen to Back to December, Taylor's version, and tell me that stuff does not bang, bro.
Oh my gosh. This is probably a good place to end it. Wouldn't you agree?
Probably, because I'm gonna start singing if we go any farther. So
I don't want you to get carried away here.
Yeah, I probably need to wrap up. That's all we got for you guys today on a Thursday. Jack and I back with you tomorrow for a Friday edition of the A to Z Sports Morning Show. Keep it dialed on A2Zsports.com for all of the written content, for our articles covering the Titans and every other team in the NFL. Make sure you like the show before you go as well. Not enough likes on the show yet as we get ready to wrap up here. So drop a like. Keep an eye out for Buck Rising on A2Z Sports Primetime. And let's get through this bye week together as the trade deadline looms. More good stuff from Jack and I tomorrow. We'll see you guys then. See you later.